Hi there, and welcome to the Educators Corner podcast, the show that brings you conversations with educators from all over the world. Conversations where we stay curious for a little bit longer about the issues, challenges, and opportunities which we are facing in our schools and in our communities. Today, I'm joined by Hugh Viney, founder and CEO of Minerva Virtual Academy, a British online school that's redefining learning for students worldwide. We'll be diving into the world of virtual education, exploring how Minerva is tackling challenges and opening doors for students, teachers, and parents. Stay tuned as we discuss the future of schooling, global communities, and a lesson Hugh's learned on this innovative journey. Let's start off, Hugh. Just tell us a little bit, how is your week shaping up?
Great question. Wow. It's the summer's never quiet at MVA. It's the busiest time of the year for us. So, I've only been in schools for 4.5 years, and colleagues in the industry always go, "Oh, are you enjoying your summer holiday? How's it going? Having some time off?" And I say, no. At MVA, it's the busiest time of year. It is when we recruit most of our students. Because of the nature of our school, we're a reactive school. Parents are choosing us often because of a poor experience in mainstream. So in the summer, it's when they're looking for us.
So let's dive in, Hugh, and let's learn a little bit more about Minerva Virtual Academy. Can you give us the elevator pitch for Minerva Virtual Academy? And maybe in this pitch, could you tell us what you think sets you apart from other online schools and traditional bricks and mortar schools?
We opened our doors in January 2021. And at the time we had 4 students. Coming up to 4.5 years later, we've got 1,200 students full-time at the school. And we're a secondary school, so that's ages 11 to 18. So how on earth have we grown from 4 kids to 1,200 in that time? Becoming the fastest growing school in the UK. And you've got to ask how, why? And there's 2 clear reasons for me. One, probably the most clear, is there's obviously a demand or a need, or both, for a different version of schooling, a different type of schooling to the one parents and children have been used to for 200 years. And a type of schooling that suits certain learners much better, far better than a mainstream school. Learners who are perhaps suffering with mental health needs, the traditional school can't support them. An online school like ours, where they get to learn from home, feel relaxed, feel happy. Guess what? When you're feeling happy and relaxed, you learn more, you make more friends. So obviously there was a need for a school like that with that kind of learner. And then there's the neurodivergent students that flourish in our environment, because it's not the home necessarily, although that can be it. It's being able to learn online where they can concentrate without the distractions of 25 other students in the class, because they are more sensitive to noise. They're more sensitive to smells. So guess what? When they're learning from home online, they engage more. What happens when you engage more? You learn more, you make more friends. So there was clearly, again, a need and a demand for a school that would allow those students to flourish. Throw in the other categories we have, like elite athletes and performers, and then finally the sort of lifestyle piece where it's not necessarily the child's needs, it's the family's needs, because they travel a lot or they want to travel more. So obviously a school like ours was something those families hadn't found before. So that's the one reason I think we've grown to be the fastest growing school in the UK.
Maybe we could just try and view Minerva Virtual Academy through the eyes of a student for a moment, Hugh. And could you maybe just talk us through what may be a typical day, if there's such a thing in any school, but what a typical day might be for a student who's part of your Minerva Virtual Academy?
Mostly a typical day might look like this. A Monday morning, there's assembly with the principal or one of the vice principals leading it. And that's an assembly. Think about it with sort of 800 kids beamed in from around the world on a Monday morning. And how cool is that for an assembly? That's how you kick off your week. And that will be a typical assembly like you would run, Kai, based off a particular topic or theme for the week, highlighting some exceptional achievements from our students, all those sorts of things. You get it at a typical assembly. It's just ours is online and global. That day you might have a couple of hours of your learning on your own. So you might be doing a maths module for the first time on the virtual platform. And then in the afternoon, you might have 2 lessons only. So you might be a chemistry GCSE lesson, or you might have your English lit, and then an after school club at 3, which could be art, could be AI, it could be coding. We've got nearly 40 clubs. We've got a baking club now. We've got a philosophy club. And that might be a typical Monday. A week will vary, but will oscillate, in different patterns. On Wednesday, you might have that mental session I spoke about. On Wednesday morning, you've got your year group assembly. So it's your chance to team up with, see your year 7s and year 8s and your year 9s. And we have heads of year like you have at a big sort of international school, a big school. So that's your year group assemblies. You might have some more after school clubs that week as well. We have social rooms where the kids can connect online. And sometimes, though, if you're an athlete, particularly, your schedule is so busy, you might miss some lessons on Thursday and Friday, but you can watch the recordings. So other kids in our school, they might not be like logging on till sort of 6 p.m. That's because they spent all day training. So it really does vary. And our point is we cater for so many different types of learners, and being able to watch the recordings is something that lots of our students, not all, love to take advantage of.
Fantastic. So it sounds a little bit like a Lego model that there is structure to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But depending on the needs of the student, you can really flex that structure to meet the needs of any type of student, and you could flex that structure in unlimited ways.
Thing is, I'd love to show you my business plan from 2020 because it's basically the same. This was an idea I came up with for how I think school could be. And all we've done is improve it. So in the original model, we had fewer live lessons, actually. And now we've added more. We had actually mentors. The mentoring was once a fortnight, but that's gone up to once a week. We had school trips, but maybe 1 a year. Now we've got sort of 6 a term. So we've improved the model, which is amazing. But the actual model, the concept, was the one I came up with in the summer of 2020. But what you just said there about structure is so important. And sort of, we do have structure. We do have a formula which can be built to suit the needs of various students. And I remember when I was coming up with the concept, a lot of education entrepreneurs were trying to get me to like blow it all up, like don't do GCSEs and A-levels, man. Just like tear up the system. Or some really cool stuff. I know a very cool online school that doesn't have a normal term like you and I would know. They have 3 weeks on, 1 week off throughout the year, which super cool, super innovative. But I was really conscious. I wanted the innovation to be in all the ways I've described to you. Flexibility, obviously being online, the blend of asynchronous and synchronous. That's pretty innovative in of itself. I didn't want to do anything, not do GCSEs and A-levels or not do term dates that families are used to. I sort of wanted to be able to be normal enough that we weren't putting off families that clearly needed us. Do you know what I mean? So we do have autumn term, spring term, summer holidays match the ones that you're used to, perhaps not in the Middle East, but do you know what I mean? They're pretty typical. So it's an interesting point you picked up on with that, with structure and innovation. We've got some of the constraints and arguably valuable constraints of the typical school system. We're just playing with the model of delivery.
Most young people that I've worked with seem to benefit from some sort of structure, but you've got a huge amount of flexibility within that structure, certainly for the students. So then I guess I'm curious about then what might that look like? What might that feel like for the teachers and the staff who work in the Minerva Virtual Academy? Is their experience have they got that level of flexibility that the students have? What does that give us a sense of that?
It's obviously evolved so much, our faculty and our faculty structure. When we started off, we borrowed some tutors from my tutoring business. And that was the faculty, a couple of tutors. And And that was okay for the first 20 kids, but it quickly became apparent we needed to not be like the tutoring model. We needed to really build our faculty like a traditional school. So, fast forward to now, we've got in the summer of 2025, I think it's 160 faculty on the payroll. We have a principal, 2 vice principals, 4 assistant vice principals, that kind of mirror of a good and big international school. Heads of year, heads of department, big departments, like the maths department is big, like you get in a big traditional school. So we've really developed the faculty, and it's only to the benefit of the students that we've got this amazing structure and traditional structure in many ways, except, of course, for a few things, right? Our teachers all get to work from home, and that is incredibly attractive, as you will know, as a pioneer of hybrid. And it's something that many teachers do not have the chance to do. And many of our teachers, including some middle leaders, get 3-day weeks and 4-day weeks. And that in itself is an innovative offer for teachers. You've got some absolutely top class teachers coming to us from the private sector and the state sector, from international or UK, who have been senior leaders in senior leadership positions. They get to come to us and do a 4-day week. That's attractive. So those are pretty cool. There's always more things you can do, but those are pretty cool.
And does that make recruitment very easy for you?
Yeah, unbelievably. So we don't struggle for hiring teachers, and we need to be able to hire lots because of our pupil growth. We've got to be hiring teachers all the time. We've got 25 new teachers joining this term. New. And that is simply to cater for the growth. We haven't lost any. We lost maybe 1 or 2 before the summer holiday. So that's just to cater for our growth. And this is a unique challenge in our school that other teachers and senior leaders are not used to. The pupil growth. Your class is like every month, a whole load of new kids joining your class. Because I should make the point, we recruit students join throughout the year. There's about 10 points throughout the year that they join. So that is a unique challenge for us, and some that our teachers are embracing, but it's tough.
So one of the attractions of being a member of staff in a traditional bricks and mortar school is that you're part of an educational community or professional community in the same way that the students are. And you've explained how the students are meeting up at least 6 times a term, face to face. What about the teachers and the staff and them feeling part of a community? How does that work?
If I'm honest with you, Kai, in the first couple of years, they weren't that interested. We'd invite them to all these things, come down to London, come to the office. And it was a bit like, no, we chose to be an online school, so I didn't have to hang out with anyone. Look, and that's not great. I didn't like that. But that was honestly my experience the first couple of years. Teachers were really happy that they picked an online school where they could spend more time with their family and were away from staff room politics and were away from staff room communities, right? I mean that. Now, obviously, I don't think that's ideal, but and in the last 2 years, it's changed a lot. So the school trips the kids are on, the teachers there. And this is these are the highlights of the year for some of our teachers and senior leaders and middle leaders, going on the trip with 150 kids at the Science Museum or the trips we do recently to Bath and the Roman baths. And like you've got tons of staff on those trips. So they're meeting up and connecting there and getting to see their kids in person. And what's so amazing, because it's rarer in our school, it means the connection when you see each other. It means when you do, it's so much more powerful. It's really amazing. So look, the staff get to do that. They have a common room. We've got an online staff room. And then we do things like this year, Suzanne, who's the principal of MVA, and her and I did a tour of the UK and a visit to Malaga, where we've got a lot of teachers in Spain. And we went to Exeter, Birmingham, Manchester, Edinburgh, London, and we connected with families in person. This is less a school trip, more a meet the principal and the CEO and founder, and dozens of teachers would be at each event. And so we got to see them then, connect with them then. So we're going to make that an annual thing too. So we're doing what we can, Kai, to fill those potential voids. I say potential because remember some of them don't want it. Some of them don't want to meet up, which I don't like. We're doing what we can to fill those voids. and bring the teachers more together. And I think as the faculty has developed, especially in the last 2 years, when we've grown from a small school to a large school, to be honest, sort of gone missing out the medium bit very quickly almost. We've got more and more amazing teachers who do want to meet up, do want to connect. So I'll give you an example. In a couple of weeks, we're doing a new family meetup in Battersea Park. We've got about 120 families, all who are joining MVA this September. A ton of teachers are coming to that. And I'm taking them all for dinner, on the Thursday night after the family event. So, and this is the kind of thing we're always trying to do.
So, Hugh, you've given us a fantastic journey through the Minerva Virtual Academy experience for students, for teachers, for parents. Sounds like a brilliant model you've evolved there. And we've got, it seems, all those different stakeholder groups in the Academy having a different but a really positive experience. So I guess the next question would be, well, that's great. They're having a great time. They're really enjoying this experience day to day. But you've taken on a lot of students, it seems, who are struggling with traditional bricks and mortar schooling, maybe with engagement, attendance, learning, a whole range of issues which these young people were struggling with. Other than them really valuing the experience, what can you tell us about the success of the school in terms of delivering, learning outcomes? How do you know your students are making really good progress?
If you want to talk about normal outcomes that you would look at for a school, we've only had one set of A-levels, 12 kids last year. So we've got 25 students, A-levels results pending, coming now. I have the Pearson letter here. It came today. And it says, do not open before Wednesday. These are the results for Thursday. So Kai, I'm holding them here. If this podcast was a week later, I could give you maybe I could tell you live the A-level results of our 25 students. But last year we did reasonably well. We're a mixture of really good results and average results. But I think what's easier to measure is our GCSEs. 3 years in a row now, we've beaten the national average. And that was 30 kids, then 70 kids, then last year 150, and this year it's going to be 230 GCSE results. So we've always beaten the national average. And then last year, one of our students got the highest mark in the world for maths, GCSE. You can do it. You can get amazing grades with our model. That proves. And we're non-selective. Any child can come to us for pre-sixth form. For sixth form, we have a bit more of a selection criteria. But yeah, for GCSEs, we're non-selective. And we want to support children, and we're a happiness-first approach. But we still have a happiness-first approach and get really good results, which I find really interesting, don't you?
I think it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And I think, so the results, it sounds like what you're doing there is really impressive. You're not selective at Key Stage 4, and the story you told about your first student, that's an amazing story. But I guess school success is not all about exam results, is it? And and I think also, you've been sharing with me that the example you gave of the student who came to you really struggling to engage with traditional schooling and then did doing a Key Stage 4 with you and then has gone back into a traditional sixth form, that you're seeing quite a lot of that.
Yeah, totally. Look, then another ways that schools' outcomes are measured, attendance, right? And we have an attendance crisis in the UK, 1.6 million students consistently absent from school, persistently absent from school. But we think a school like ours is one of the solutions to the absentee crisis, because children are not attending school because they don't like it and they don't want to go. Sorry, it's because they don't like it. It's not because they don't want to go. Lots of these kids want to go to school, but for mental health reasons or neurodivergent reasons, school isn't right for them. School, at best, doesn't suit their learning style. Then a level down, school makes them unhappy, so they don't want to go. It makes them sad. And then the worst, and this is sadly prevalent amongst thousands of kids across the UK. School makes them feel ill. School makes them feel sick. So they're not avoiding school. They cannot go to school. It makes them feel sick. And we are a solution for many kids, not all, by any means, not all, but many. Our model will help these kids. So what we're seeing is children, 40% of our kids might have been EBSA, emotionally based school avoiders, either for neurodivergent reasons or for mental health. Sometimes it's both, of course, but I'm just saying you split them up. And their attendance is like below 50%. And then they come to us and their attendance is in the 90s consistently. And what happens when you attend? You're happier. What happens when you attend? You engage more. What happens when you attend? You learn more. What happens when you attend? You make more friends. So you just see all these these things we do measure internally of kids getting better and better and happier and making friends. And guess what? You're right. After year 11 GCSEs, we do lose a bunch of kids who return to physical school. But hey, that's bad for business, but it's amazing for the kids and it's amazing for outcomes. So I think that's a success story in itself, and we're really proud of that.
Well, that sounds absolutely incredible, Hugh. And we have got, I think, not just in the UK, I think in many parts of the world, we have a crisis with students engaging and therefore very often leads to attending like mainstream schooling. I think the most recent figures I checked in the UK, which I think you just referred to, 1 in 4 students in the UK are not regularly attending a traditional bricks and mortar school. And so that a school like yours enables students to re-engage positively with learning and therefore then get their attendance back on track. And then they might continue with you, or if then that enables them to go back to a different setting. I mean, that sounds like people involved in national policy should be listening to you and learning from you. But we'll come back to that towards the end of the podcast. You talk about being the fastest growing school in the UK. You're now looking to expand internationally. So tell us a little bit about your plans for international growth and development.
Yeah, so we've already got about 20% of our students in 60 countries outside the UK, right? So that's happened already. It's happened organically. It's happened without much attempt to grow in those countries. And there's been a few sort of larger ones typically from day one, as Spain and France and Italy for various reasons. Not always expats, often maybe international school profile where they want to do British education, but they could be a native of that country. You've got to have a certain level of English to come to our school. We do teach the English national curriculum of GCSEs and A-levels, but you've got to have a level B2 in the Common European Framework for Languages. You can have a B1 if you commit to additional English support. So we've even got an EAL team and a head of EAL now at the school, because we do believe more students around the world will benefit from our model. And we believe our school benefits if we have more students from all over the world. But my big plans are what happens after that. With our alumni network, it's going to be amazing one day to know in our, if you're an MVA alumni, we haven't thought of what they'll be called yet. Old Minerva, we don't know what it is yet. But if you're an MVA alumni, think of all the people, the opportunities around the world you might have. And I'm really excited by that. So we've always had a global number of students. We've always had ambitions to grow globally. But what became really clear in the last 18 months is, okay, some of the kids in Spain and France fly over to England for the school trips, but it's not ideal. They can't make them all. And the ones further east, Middle East particularly, they really aren't getting that benefit of the school trips, which is such a key part of our model. I said at the start, right? It's like what the kids think's the best bit of the model. It's one of our USPs. And then that additional secret sauce stuff I told you about with the app where the parents are connecting of their own accord, going for coffees with mates in town from MVA, kids meeting up and working together, that beautiful thing that's happened in the last 18 months. Again, the kids outside the UK are not getting that. And that, for me, is the secret sauce. The school trips are a massive part of our model, but the community meetup piece is just the magic dust, right? So I want all our students to have those benefits, no matter if they're in the UK or in other parts of the world. So that's why we're launching the GCC community, the golf community, where we've hired a vice principal Middle East, Harry Allen, who comes from GEMS International Dubai. He's based out there, and he is now going to be the figurehead of our golf community, which will mean all the great benefits of MBA with our virtual learning platform, the same mentorship they all get, one-on-one mentors once a week. They get a dedicated GST timetable, which is super cool. But then they also get the community elements of MVA. The kids in the Gulf region, UAE and Saudi and Qatar and everywhere else nearby, even if it's +1 as well, plus 1 or 2 hours, they're going to get the organized school trips in person, and we're going to kick off with 2 a term. Just get on with it. Let's do it. They also will get the community meetups, which is where the parents are going to be connecting for coffees and the kids are going to be connecting to meet up to learn together. So that's part of it, really, Kai. We just want all our students around the world to have the full benefits of MBA. And the first bit on that first stop on the international expansion is the Middle East. But yeah, we probably keep going east or go west as well in the coming years.
Okay, so quite a lot of our listeners are out here in the Middle East. So if they hadn't heard of MBA, it's coming to a country near you very shortly if you're listening in the Middle East. Now, my understanding here is you're also starting to offer some of your services to traditional bricks and mortar schools.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, brilliant. So for 3 years now, been providing a B2B service outside the school, separate to the school, but using the school's expertise and tech and content. We've been providing, it's called MVA Hybrid. Where essentially you're allowing physical schools to have an online offering. For the last 3 years, we've been providing this for football clubs in the UK. So around 40 professional football clubs using MVA Hybrid to give their kids 16 to 18 academy students an A-level. So we've been putting these like A-level courses on for footballers, and it's gone so really, really well. We've loved it. Love working with the football clubs who run like schools. Just the kids are in do 1 A-level, not 3, because the kids are playing football more. And that model's worked really well. We've allowed these physical clubs to have an online offering and do these A-levels with us. And it's worked so well that we decided this year, in 2025, to launch it and make it available to schools around the world. So currently we're in conversations with schools all over the UK, but also international schools, as you'd expect, where you might want to offer psychology A-level, for example, at your school, and you can't hire the teachers, not maybe because you can't find them, but also maybe because of the budgets. Don't worry, you can team up with MVA Hybrid, and for a much fairer price, you can deliver A-level psychology to 4 or 5 of your students who want it. So that's the main offer. There's also the piece where we're working with local authorities as well, again, giving them a hybrid option. But yeah, Kai, you know all about that, because I actually think it's psychology that you're doing with your school, isn't it? But if you describe to your listeners exactly what you're doing, that's essentially what we're offering to other international schools.
We're very excited, but we're about to start offering A-level psychology online from next week. And it will mean that we are able to offer A-level psychology to our students at an affordable cost for us and for our parents. And if we weren't doing it online, we wouldn't be able to offer it. So it's creating, like you're doing on a much bigger scale, but we're creating educational opportunity for young students which wouldn't exist if we weren't building in some sort of online modality to it.
100%. And Kai, you're doing it in-house, which is amazing. Obviously that's we don't want people doing it in-house. We want them using us. But it's amazing. You're the first I've heard doing it. So firstly, I think that's awesome. And anyone listening out there, if they don't want the strain of doing it themselves, although it probably would save them more money, they can use us, and we'll be the ones that can help provide those A-levels or GCSEs. But it's amazing you're doing it in-house, and I think it's pioneering, really.
Well, thank you, Hugh. But we're not really starting from scratch. And those who have followed British School Salalah and British School Muscat over the last 5 or 6 years, you'll probably know that we've been offering a hybrid model in Salalah for the last 4 or 5 years. And so building and learning from that experience, like you've been learning from your experience, that's given us the confidence to go it alone. And there are lots of lessons, I think, that we've both been learning as we've been developing these innovative models. And so if you're going to jump straight in, Yes, you can do it, but yeah, I'd say, talk to people like Hugh, talk to myself, and we can share you some of the pain that we've experienced and learn from some of the lessons. Let's say a head teacher or a school leader or maybe a teacher who's listening to this, and they say, yeah, that does make a lot of sense to me. I do want to step into that world. I want to start thinking about some online provision to increase educational opportunity for my young people in my educational setting. From your experience, Hugh, what would you say is the most common form of resistance that you might get from any particular stakeholder group? What's the most common resistance you're up against?
If you're from the head teacher's perspective, it's the teachers who are petrified that they're going to lose their jobs. And in some cases, that's really reasonable. Of course it is. It's the parents who think it's not value for money, that you're replacing a physical teacher with an online teacher. And these are valid concerns. But the point is, this sort of mythical head we're talking about, who definitely exists, all over the world, is all they're doing is creating opportunity. They're not trying to threaten the teacher's job. They're not trying to devalue in-person education. They're doing what you've done and said, we don't have psychology A-level now. Wouldn't it be cool to have psychology A-level? Guess what? We don't have to do it in the ways we used to, which is very expensive. We can do it this way for an affordable price and give students more opportunity to do psychology. You throw in other awesome subjects like Latin and Greek, ancient Greek, and things that the schools that can't traditionally do anymore. You throw in German because the German department had to be cut and because there wasn't enough people doing German. But there were 2 kids that would thrive doing German. Guess what? Doing it this online way and creating a hybrid way for it, that means these kids can get a great GCSE and have a great experience that they wouldn't have otherwise. So the argument is it's about opportunity, as you say, rather than it's like, don't worry, don't get caught up in the big grand concerns about teachers losing their jobs or parents seeing it as subpar experience. Because firstly, teachers losing their jobs, we've got a teacher recruitment crisis and retention crisis at the moment. Teachers are leaving the profession, right? Teachers are leaving the profession in droves. So we don't need to worry too much about teachers losing their jobs in this environment. All we're trying to do is create more opportunities for kids to learn, because we've proven, people like yourself and I and many, many others have proven that it can be effective having online methods of learning, which can increase the value of the school experience.
And yes, and I think maybe the parents and some of the teachers that we talked to about this type of environment, they're tainted by the COVID experience. And I think you've explained earlier in this conversation how the COVID experience of online teaching, online learning, the way that you're organising the learning is a long way from that experience. Yeah, very different. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a different model, and we were thrown into that. So let's just hope that somebody in the policy space is listening to this, Hugh, or maybe they're interested in what we've been talking about. If you had the attention of an education policymaker in government, anywhere in the world, just for 1 minute only, what would you urge them to reconsider about how we design and deliver schooling for the next generation? If you had 1 minute with them.
It's become abundantly clear that families and students need options in order to get the best out of the student. The evidence is absolutely clear that physical brick and mortar school is not suitable for nearly 20% of students. And there's probably 20 to 40% where it's not that great either. But there's a fundamental evidence to prove this, that certain students thrive in an environment that's not in the traditional classroom. We've proven that. We have the data now. So you've got to listen. Now, that doesn't mean we solve all problems of education, but 20% of the students, a lot of students. Now, and as we've seen in the UK, the DfE created the DfE accreditation scheme with Ofsted for schools like mine, which is great. But they still class this as not a full-term solution, a long-term solution. Children should not be in online education for longer than 6 weeks and things like that. They still say things like that. We've proven that's not the case. And we've proven that kids' outcomes are better when they're with a school like ours for much longer than 6 weeks, for 2 years, 3 years. And what's so interesting, I just want to use evidence here, is this year, MVA has been engaged by 50 local authorities in the UK. That's so against government's policy, which is saying school kids should not be put in online schools for longer than short term. Local authorities, 50 now, are sending students to Minerva Virtual Academy because they see a full school experience as much more valuable than sending that student to a 6-week maths and English alternative provision. So that's 50 at local authorities, up from 8 a year ago. That's happened organically. So there's something happening, Kai, and people like local authorities are listening, then government departments should be listening too. And that's only going to grow. And I think people are using us a bit like parents, despite government advice. But the evidence is clear. Options are what we needed to improve outcomes.
Just to wrap up then, could you share with our listeners one moment from your MVA journey, whether it's with a student, a parent, or a teacher, that sums up why you do what you do?
Look, every week now, and I don't want to say, I didn't want to say this because I've said it already on the call, but this is it. This really is it, Kai. So there've been over 600 of these messages, and we get almost 1 a week or 2 a week. And this is exactly why we do what we do. This is it. And is a thank you from a parent saying, thank you for giving me my child back. Thank you for giving me my child back. How have we got to the stage where we live in a world where school can cause such an issue for a child? School should be a wonderful place. School should be an amazing place for a child. How have we got to a place where school is not that for some kids, where parents feel they have lost their child? It's because we haven't had options until now. Whereas these parents have found a different option. Maybe they've taken a bit of a risk. And within weeks sometimes, but often within terms, the parents are saying to us, thank you for giving me my child back. And Kai, so I've lost count now of the times where we get a message like that every week. But it's even more powerful when on a school trip, a mum or a dad tells me that in person. And that is why we do what we do. We're giving parents their child back.
That's really touching to hear that so many times. That must be quite incredible. As the CEO and founder of Minerva Virtual Academy. Well, thank you, Hugh, for taking time out from your incredibly busy schedule in the middle of August to talk to us today. But I think I also want to thank you on behalf of all those families where you've had that impact that you've just described. And thank you for being such an enthusiastic, energetic, and brave school leader and innovator, because you are clearly charting out a path which I think is going to make a huge difference to global education. So you are being an incredibly courageous leader, and you're doing it with such enthusiasm and joy. It's been a real pleasure to have you on the Educator's Corner podcast. So thank you, Hugh, and keep up the incredible work that you are doing with your team.
Thank you, Kai. I really, really do appreciate that. Thanks for having me.
Take care. You've been listening to the Educator's Corner podcast, the show that brings you conversations with educators from all over the world, the podcast where we stay curious for just a little bit longer. The Educator's Corner podcast is hosted by me, Kai Vasher, and produced by Stuart Pardoe, Zoe Snell, and Marion James, and by BSM BSS Productions.